Financial freedom fighters, greetings to all my financial freedom fighters out there. Today, I come back to give you some information. And so, as I always say, class is in session. And so today, I come to give you information and the different state that does not have state tax, that does not have income tax in those states. So state with no income tax, we're starting off with the first state with no income tax. So we are comparing the state with no income tax to the state with income tax, right? State income tax. For instance, Alaska does not have state income tax. Alaska does not have state income tax, and that's the total tax burden in those states is 5.06%. The total tax burden. But please don't get it twisted and start to pack your bags and your shipping car to ship your cars and move away to these states, because these states also have laws that high property tax, they have sale taxes and all those stuff, high cost of living in some of those states. So make sure you do your research before you think about moving to those states. So the number one state and with the lowest total burden will be Alaska with 5.06% total income tax, the burden in those states. In New Hampshire is one of those states that does not have income tax in those states. So New Hampshire is one of them, coming with the total tax burden in those states is 6.14%, and that's New Hampshire. Those states do not have state income tax. They have federal. You pay federal income, but you do not pay state income tax in those states. Tennessee will come in at number 3. Number 3, Tennessee, with a tax burden of 6.22%. That state does not have a state tax either. But like I said, you got to do your research. Don't pack your bags and run away to those states just yet. But they're a nice state to live in because, they got no state tax. But make sure you do your homework before you pack up and leave to those states. Florida come in here at 6.33%. Total tax burden for those states is 6.33% in Florida. But those states do not pay state tax, only federal tax. And, like I said, they also have high property tax and sales tax, and those tax, they do have those taxes. So even though you do not pay state tax, you got to do your research so you don't find yourself in a situation where you move from one state to the other state and now you're paying higher taxes and healthcare, higher taxes with your property and so forth. So Florida come in at 6.33% of total tax burden in those states. So these are the states that have no no state tax. Also in Wyoming, 6.42% tax burden in that state in Wyoming. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but 6.42%. And in South Dakota, the total tax burden in those states is 6.69%, but they does not have a state tax, but they do have federal tax. So moving on, in Nevada have a tax burden of 7.69% total tax burden in Nevada. But those states do not have a state tax, but you have to pay federal tax, sale tax, property tax, and so forth. But these are the 9 states without state tax. In Texas, come in at 8.0%, 8.01% in Texas. Those states do not have state tax in Texas, but the total burden of income tax in those states will be 8.01% in Texas. Last but not least, in Washington D.C., the total tax burden in Washington is 8.24%. But those states do not pay state tax. They do pay federal tax, and they also pay property tax, sale tax, and so forth. But these are the 9 states without that do not pay state tax. They do not pay state tax, but they do pay federal income tax. But don't get too excited and pack your bags yet and run to these states without doing your research. You got to do your research to know what's going on in those states. You got to do your research. So don't pack your baggie just yet and run to these states, right? Do your research so you could know what's going on in these states and what to do and what not to do, okay? So these are the 9 states without state tax, but they do have federal property tax and sale tax. And those tax, you gotta do your research that you will know what to do. You will know exactly what to do in these situations. You don't just run away. But Alaska have the lowest burden out of all 50 states. Alaska have the lowest burden with 5.06% burden, income tax burden, but they do not pay federal taxes. All right, so stay focused, keep your head up, and do your research before you move to these states, so you could know what to do and what not to do, and what you can afford and what you're willing to put up with. But in these states, they do not pay state taxes, but they do pay federal property tax, sale tax, and so forth. One love. Like, share, and subscribe. These are the 9 states that do not pay state taxes. Thank you. One love to all my subscribers and all my supporters. One love. Like, share, and subscribe. One.